Hello, and welcome to another episode of Homeschool Moms Unfiltered. I'm your host, Amanda, and my amazing co host is.
Hello, I'm Megan.
Hey. All right, so we are your source for messy, imperfect homeschool insights and advice. We are not paid influencers who hawk every program under the sun just because someone's willing to cut a check. We never show up and pretend that we homeschool in family photo attire. And we do not make goldfish crackers from scratch, though I will admit that I do occasionally make those cheddar crisps in the oven because they're just like really freaking good. But I'm not making, I just buy my goldfish crackers. Okay.
Yeah, are you talking where you just like put the cheddar slice in the oven and like it's just the cheddar slice with seasoning on it? Is that what you do?
Yeah, not even seasoning. And I prefer it with shredded, like already shredded. But let's be real.
Oh,
I do store shredded because I'm that lazy. It's probably better if you shred it yourself. But again, we're not pretending here. So I buy the bag of shredded and put it, and then it like, yeah, and it has all the little holes and it's like, oh, so good. So good.
nice.
I know. Now I
Well,
need them. Now I
yeah.
need them.
Great. Thanks. Yeah. And here's the deal. If you are making your own goldfish crackers from scratch, good for you. No judgment here, right? But we also know that the vast majority of parents aren't doing that. And the more we get bombarded with those images online and in social media, the easier it is to start to get down on yourself and think that you're failing or you're not doing enough. So you will not find that vibe here. I mean, I will start the episode by saying I am exhausted as fuck right now. Like, I have no problem showing up and telling you that I know I will have fun tonight because every time we get started, I'm like, yes, I have the best time ever. But right now, if you were like, would you rather do this or would you rather go to bed? I want to go to bed. I have just been super busy. I have a trip coming up that I'm not super duper looking forward to, and I'm just tired. So after we are done recording, I would like to curl up in a ball for like a week and sleep. But unfortunately, there's no room for my schedule on that.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Authenticity is key. And some days, weeks, hell, for me earlier this year, I was in like this awful chronic illness flare and it was literally months, right? Some months are just like that. It is what it is, and that's okay. The other thing that you're going to find here are secular and progressive views. Yeah, it is kind of like finding a unicorn in the wild, but secular and progressive do indeed exist in the same space for homeschool parents. Here, we believe things like, oh, I don't know, my body, my choice. Own voice content is essential to nurturing well rounded learners. Crazy things like Ukraine has an undeniable right to their sovereignty. Love is love, right? These are not complicated concepts, but we're all in on them here and so much more.
Yeah. So if that all sounds soothing to your battered soul in this time period that is so fraught with hatred and ignorance, welcome. We are thrilled that you are here. If you're like the person who left a snarky comment on an episode not that long ago where we said no human can be illegal on stolen land, we're guessing you'll be tuning out right now. But you're more than welcome to stay.
Yeah, that's it. You can stay and listen and rage, but we're also happy to say toodaloo. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about cherry picking various aspects of education from the public school system. So when you make that leap into homeschooling, what aspects of the traditional education model should we carry over into our homeschool, and which ones should we just leave behind? But first, we do like to start every episode with a little life update as part of our Keeping It Real. And so let's talk. What's your week been like, Megan?
I would like to sleep more. I'm so tired. I'm so tired. We've been traveling. And I know that's like, oh, poor her. She's been traveling. But part of it, I've shared before in previous episodes if you've missed it. Part of the reason that we've been traveling so much is because we are in like the final stages of working on all of our residency stuff to live in Europe. And we can't be here full time until that's done. So we have a huge immigration appointment next week that should be our final turning in of paperwork. And at that point, the clock is ticking for us to hopefully get all of our documents necessary that we can just plant our butts in one spot and stop moving around, which would be really, really nice. So I'm tired and gathering all that paperwork. I mean, they need bank statements for every single bank account you have. And we have bank accounts in 3 countries. Like they need notarized documents from my husband because he's not getting the same visa we are. So I have to prove I'm not kidnapping our children. Like, I mean, just so FBI background checks for even for my teenagers, which involves fingerprinting and apostilling. And it's a freaking process. So, and it's just a lot. You're juggling all this stuff and the stakes are high, right? Like it's not like we don't have a home other than this apartment. So we are told we can't come live in it. The stakes are pretty high. So I'm just tired. That's all. Like the kids are, they're tired too, but they're doing okay otherwise. They know what the long-term vision is and they're old enough to understand it and understand that it's, just these are the steps we have to take if you'd like to leave the United States, which right now the motivation for that is pretty high. So it is what it is, but it'll be fine. So yeah, that's that. I'm just tired. I'm too tired for anything else. How about you? What's your week been like?
Yeah, my week has been okay. I think I mentioned during recording last week that we were going to Knott's Berry Farm for like an educational, it was a school field trip type thing. And they had like a science presentation where they talked about different roller coasters and then got to ride on them and the parents could go along. That's something I haven't done in quite a while. I haven't been on any sort of amusement park ride since I developed long COVID because I have a lot of spatial issues and dysautonomia for anyone who's listening and knows what that is. But I was feeling good. I have been feeling pretty good. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this. We're here. It's going to be great. I'm going to do it towards the end of our time. And that way, if it totally knocks me on my ass, I, just have to make my way to the car and drive home sort of thing. Well, not me drive home, be a passenger in the car on the way home. But yeah, so I went on a couple of rides and the first one was okay. The second one, I had no business being on. I think we were like 20 seconds into the ride and my vision went like totally like from the edges black all the way into this tiny little pinpoint dot. And I was like,
Oh, goodness.
oh shit, I'm not gonna be with it when this ends. And so yeah, I was pretty messed up the rest of the day. And it meant that I had quite a few bad days after. So I had that. And then we're also doing this. I've talked about we're hatching chicks. And they all started hatching. Well, they started pipping like Sunday night. And so I was not feeling 100% better. And then the craziness started on Monday. And then I was like super anxious. Like Monday night, I think I got a total of 4 hours of sleep. And even during that sleep, I was like dreaming about humidity levels and whether or not I was shrink wrapping chicks in their shells and all of this stuff. Like it's a whole thing. I did not anticipate it being this challenging. There are a couple of them that just like refuse to drink the water. And so I'm like finger watering them, like trying to keep them alive until I can convince them to actually put their head in the water. Like, but yeah. So they're adorable. I put up a hilarious video where like I tried to record the chicks to send to my nephews because they've been kind of following along from long distance and the chicks were totally being hilarious. And so if you have a chance, you should go look at that. It's really funny. But yeah, like all little things, nothing huge. And I'm starting to feel better. I'm starting to get some more sleep. I think we're done hatching chicks. We have 2 eggs that are still in the incubator. We're giving them a couple days in case they're just slow pokes. But I think we have everyone in the brooder and things are going to slow down and we have them for, I don't know, 4 or 5 more days before we take them to their new home where they aren't condo dwelling chicks anymore. But yeah, so that's what I got going on.
I love that. The interesting thing is, and I know you have medical stuff that goes well beyond, but like the really interesting thing is I was a roller coaster junkie until I was about 30, like a little bit after. And then I just had like a life break where I wasn't roller coastering as much. I had small kids and stuff like that. And then even when my daughter was she's 16 now, but when she was like 7, 8, she was my roller coaster buddy. And we would do single rider line and we would just get off and get back on and get off and get back on. I mean, we would do it for hours and loved it. And then a couple of years later, we went to Carowinds, which is split between North and South Carolina. It's right on the border. And I thought I was going to die. Right. And I should have known because I started having like, if I'd be at the park with the kids and I'd get on the swing, I'd get nauseous on the swing. And I was like, wow, that's random. right? And I think it's
Mhm.
like an age thing too, a little bit. Like, and then you've got stuff on top of that, obviously. But I wonder, like, if anybody else has experienced that. Like, as you get older, the tolerance for that has just completely diminished. There's no way I can't do any of them anymore.
Yeah, that's it. I could totally see that. So I was fine with like the mousetrap style. And it did reassure me that if we want to go to our local amusement park, I could do that one because that's the one that we do most often. But yeah, I saw the one that's like the seat where your legs are dangling,
Mhm.
and that was always my favorite when I was younger, and when I was
Yeah.
growing up, there was one that I went to a lot, and so I was like, "That's the one, I'm gonna do it," and my kiddo, it's his first time being, like, at a real amusement park with, like, the truly grown up, where you have to be at least 54 inches to ride kind of thing, and so he did amazing. He, like, totally stepped up to the plate. He was a bit anxious about a lot of them, right? There's, like, a surf rider one where you stand up, and there's, all of these. He did them all. He did amazing, but we went on that one together with feet dangling, and it was, yeah. So age, medical, all of the above. Not no longer a big crazy roller coaster rider.
Yeah, my
Totally
days have
understand why it
passed.
was a bunch of teens, right?
There you go.
So, all right. How about we do this episode kind of like a Marie Kondo purge, right? Does it spark joy? If it does, let's keep it. If it doesn't, toss it. I don't know. I'm not a big Marie Kondo person, but I think that's the basic gist of it. But, when you listen, maybe you're going to land somewhere in between, right? And modify the version you choose to keep. The rules are truly pretty lax with this activity, right? Like this is homeschooling. We talk all the time about how you get to make the rules, you get to decide what works.
Yeah, absolutely. This is going to be good. And I think you're really going to see the differences in the way we approach education in our respective households shine through during this discussion. So, if you're new to the podcast, I, Megan, am a loosey goosey unschooler, and Amanda is an aggressive academic homeschooler. And we've always felt that this is one of the strengths of our partnerships, right? You can come and no matter what topic we're talking about, you can get a really wide range of options, insight, advice, experience, etc. Sometimes we totally line up, and other times it's like could not be much more different. So, and you can pick and choose what works for you, right? Something I say might resonate, something Amanda might say resonate. You can mix it all up and create your own hybrid that's somewhere in between. But yeah, I think that's really going to be evident today.
Yes, I would guess so. All right. So let's start with like the biggest one. And this totally fits for me this week because we have just finished iReady assessments. So, for anyone who's listening, especially if you're part of the traditional school system or you were a part of the traditional school system, probably either Star 360 or iReady. And for the most part, it's like really painful. So, standardized testing. Are we keeping standardized testing in homeschooling or not? So I think first, it's important to admit or acknowledge that some states require standardized testing,
Mhm.
right? And so if you're in a state that requires it, of course you need to participate to some level. If you're not in a state that requires it, then obviously you don't have to participate. I know in our home, we had the choice between two systems. One system required standardized testing and one system doesn't require it. I had some concerns when we were going through our assessment and IEP 504 process, like getting a feel for all of that, and that maybe we didn't want to do any standardized testing. So far, it hasn't significantly impacted my kiddo. And for the most part, he kind of enjoys it. He enjoys that challenge and seeing how it goes and how he does with it. And so for us, from that regard, we decided, okay, fine. As long as it's working, as long as it's working in our house and for our kiddo, then we're fine with it. And it gives some good information, especially depending on which one you're working with and what you're doing. iReady a little bit less so because iReady is really about like whether or not you know their vocabulary and you know how to do their questions. Some other standardized testing might give you a little bit better idea. That said, we're totally open to the idea that like at some point standardized testing might not work for him anymore, or it might be a bigger source of anxiety than it is, fun to see how he did and to challenge himself and that sort of thing. And at that point, we'll probably move to the other system where we don't have to do as much standardized testing. That said, and this is, I think, going to be one of the areas where we differ the most on this, is that I think so many things in life require standardized testing. And early in the pandemic, it seemed like a lot of universities were getting rid of standardized testing and a lot of things were moving away from it. And it was like, oh, maybe we're going to really see this shift. But so many of them have moved back to it, right? Like
Hmm.
they've gone back to it. And it seems like now you're really having to look at all of these other things, certifications for things and stuff like, well, what jobs can robots not take over? What jobs can AI not take over? And so many of those jobs require testing, right? This standardized testing, whether you're becoming, I don't know, a paramedic or, a firefighter, whatever you're looking at and doing, a licensed investigator, all of these things, they have some version or level of standardized testing. So I just feel like this is one of those life skills that we can be teaching our kids. And if it's comfortable, when you're able to build on it at a time when it doesn't matter, and like, I don't care what these scores are. I just want to make sure that we have good coping strategies for not being anxious going into it and feeling like we're prepared and how we tackle it going forward. Because unfortunately, you don't know what you want to do with the rest of your life. And even if at 11, you know exactly what you want to do, the chances of it that still being exactly what you want to do at 40 or 50 are really
Yeah.
slim, right? So like for me, it's just this like, standardized testing, as long as it's not a huge source of anxiety or causing other real problems. I feel like it's just another one of those life skills that we can put the scaffolding in with in part of our homeschooling.
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything that you said. It's just a no for me, right? Like, it's
You're not wrong, but I'm not doing
right. Yeah. And we have lived in a state that required standardized testing. But the ironic part was you never had to submit the results to anybody, which was the dumbest thing ever. It was like, so why are we doing this? And so I would always use the CAT untimed online test. And the results are so skewed. Every kid comes out looking like a Mensa candidate from that test because they skew super duper high. And so it worked. It satisfied the state requirement. I was happy. We were done. I wouldn't even really kind of glance at the results, but not really care because I knew they weren't accurate. So yeah, I get it. We've looked at pathways that have not required testing, not necessarily to be anti-test, but just because those pathways also suited us. So like to go to community college, you don't typically need to test to get in. Sometimes there might be a basics of English or something like that to get in. But for the experiences that my kids have had, they haven't had to do that. But if you leave from community college and go someplace else, you're a transfer student. And so they're looking at your transfer credits typically more than testing. And so, yeah, for us, it hasn't been something that I've structured anything around because I don't feel like most of them can measure a kiddo very well. And it just hasn't been important to me. So yeah, it's a no from us. But I totally see what you're saying.
And I am just going to say, if we've talked about this before, if you use the cat and you're like, oh, I guess, I can't actually get anything useful. I personally, we've only used it once because we have to use a lot of other types of assessments now. And so I feel like I get more information from that. But if you need to use the cat or you even just choose to, I actually found some decent information out of that. Like I think we were between first and second grade when we did it. And from the results, I paid to get the report. And it became clear that I had not taught my kiddo how to use punctuation and capital letters, and I was like, "Oh, that's true." I hadn't actually directly instructed that because he reads a lot, and I just didn't think about, like, covering at that age, like, proper nouns and, making sure. And so for me, it was like "Oh, like, it's not a big deal, but it's something that I just hadn't really thought about covering." And so, fine. Okay, now I know that I need to go back and cover that a little. Easy peasy.
Hmm. You can look at the report sometimes, and even if everything is falsely elevated, but then you have this one giant dip and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I can see a glaring hole there. All right. The next one on our cherry picking list is discipline system. Things like treasure box, sticker charts, red, yellow, green, all that good kind of stuff. I mean, I don't think anybody will be terribly surprised that I'm a no on this. I am not a huge fan of this. I will say when my kids were much younger, I would use stickers for positive reinforcement for a handful of things. Potty training was a sticker process. for us, they were super young and we made it super fun. Two of my kids, okay, so kid number one, sticker chart. Kid number two didn't care about stickers at all because she crafted with stickers all the time. So she was like, that's not special. I have a whole cabinet full of stickers. So we needed something to incentivize her because she took freaking forever to potty train. And we started dancing to Harry Belafonte's song, Shake, 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 Senora, every time she peed in the potty. It was like a whole thing. The whole house got involved. It was big. Third kid, I was really tired because he was my third kid under the age of 4. And well, by the time we potty trained him, they were all a little bit older. He got M&Ms. And I swore I would never do that. And he totally got M&Ms. So absolutely nailed it. But yeah, I'm not a huge fan. I'm not a carrot and stick parent in general. Like if this, then that. It's just not the way I parent. I think they are smart enough to understand the natural consequence of things. They're smart enough to understand what's expected of them. And when you create, we talk so much about family culture. And so there's a culture in our house that you're just expected to chip in and help. I mean, we're podcasting tonight and then I have to go straight into a webinar. So I said to the boys, I'm going to need you to take Waffles out for her final bathroom break. And there's some trash that needs to go at the same time because the dumpster's right near there. They're like, okay, there doesn't need to be like this negotiation or this carrot and stick process where, well, what do I get for No, you're part of the family, right? Like this is just what we do here. So yeah, I'm not a punishment parent at all, really. Yeah, for pretty much anything. And they're happy, well-behaved kids. So it's worked for us.
Yeah. I mean, I will say, I think there's a big difference between discipline and punishment. And we've talked about that. We did that whole episode on like parenting styles and things like that. So I do think there are probably certain kids who do need some, or maybe they don't necessarily need, but they respond well to a discipline system, whether that's working on that like green, yellow, red thing. I know that's a thing that comes up a lot of times if you're doing some kind of therapy and like emotional regulation stuff around that. So that might work. Or, the sticker charts or things like that. I will say we didn't do any of those things in our home. Even when we were potty training at just after 2, we did dark chocolate covered prune pieces because with most young kids, especially who potty train, like peeing in the potty is not a big deal, but going number 2 in the potty is like a whole other situation. And I had seen this tip like, hey, so my kiddo loves dark chocolate and dark chocolate covered prunes. Like it tastes kind of like a candy, except it makes it impossible to hold your poop forever. So it was like it was a win-win. So, but yeah, we didn't do sticker charts or anything like that. And I think if you are doing this homeschool thing in the partnership way that we talk so much about doing here on the podcast and in our community, and this like really focusing on it being a partnership with parents, between the parents and the kiddos, you probably don't need to utilize these sorts of discipline systems that are so prevalent in classroom management. No, no one likes knowing that they're bad. And fundamentally, a discipline system points out when you've been bad. Yeah, it highlights when you've been good, but we all know when we aren't being highlighted as doing good, it means that we've been bad. And that's not really good for anyone. So I'm not a big fan of them. But that said, I can 100% see how there would be certain kids that would respond well to that, especially younger kids or things like that.
Yeah, because we talked in book club recently about that quote from the Ross Green book, "Kids do well when they can." And so it's like if they're, I mean, listen, I am not at my best right now. I'm so tired. I'm so stressed right now. I'm super anxious. I would not be earning stickers right now if I was on a sticker chart. I'm, not getting things done I mean, I'm getting stuff done, but it's not going well, right? Like I wouldn't be earning stickers, but I'm freaking doing my best, right? And so to have that really highlighted and be like, wow, you really do suck right now. And I'm like, no, I already knew that, but thank you. Right? I was already struggling. So thanks for kicking me while I was down.
Yeah. No, exactly. Would not be a good class dojo week for you.
Class dojo was my nemesis when my kids were like, freaking hated that thing.
I never had to experience it, but I heard so many moms complain about it.
Well, and the funny thing, like they didn't get in trouble.
Yeah.
I had well-behaved kids when they were in school. the thing that drove me nuts is that my oldest was, and I've talked about it before, like he was really retreating into himself and he was becoming like a real shell of a human because school was such a poor fit for him. And he would get dojo points for being quiet. And I was like, we're trying to get the kid to talk. Why are you giving him dojo points for being quiet? Like it was the dumbest thing ever. I was like, way to accentuate the wrong thing.
Problem. Okay. Okay. How about next one? Learning in a formal, dedicated school room or space. This could be everything from the idea of like you have to have a classroom in your home to a classroom type space carved out. When I think of that, I always think of that movie Wonder. Amazing movie. So good. But they have like a little classroom area that they do their homeschooling in. Or it could even just be desks. What were you going to say?
Mhm. No, I was just going to say we're talking in book club about highly sensitive children. Wonder was deeply traumatic for my 13-year-old, like deeply traumatic. And he signed up for a class at one point and Wonder was part of it. And I had to message the teacher and tell her that he would not be reading Wonder because he was like, I will not take the class if I have to read that book. So know your audience. But it was incredible, but deeply traumatic for a deep feeler.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can see that. But yeah, so right, it spans the gamut, but this idea of like that you need a formal dedicated space. And again, this is one of those things we're somewhere in the middle on. We definitely don't need a formal space, but my kiddo does need a desk and he will sit at his desk for like long video classes. He's doing a science curriculum that's like a 45-minute video with a worksheet that he kind of works through and takes notes on. And he does best with that at a desk, right? Like that's not a huge surprise if you're watching a computer screen and writing. It's a lot more cumbersome to be trying to do all of that while you're like rolling around on the couch. But yeah, so I mean, he does have a specific desk, and anytime we are traveling or going somewhere, he gets a space carved out for him to be able to put his school stuff. And that's his space, his dedicated space. But it's not like a classroom or this is where you have to sit and do all of your schoolwork. It's a space that he can use when he needs that sort of space for his schoolwork.
Yeah, we're kind of in the same position there. All of my kids have desks. They all want desks. They like having a desk. They all take a handful of online classes. They've got stuff they're working on. They all have second monitors because they like to be able to have, like if they're taking a class on Zoom, they like having Zoom here and Nearpod over there or whatever. Like my oldest is in this stock trading program. And so he's got Zoom on one screen and then his trading platform on the other screen. They don't like having to toggle screens. So we've got that. Having said that, it's their space. They kind of get to set it up. One of my kids has a whole bowl of fidget toys at his desk. He's got a wobble board. He's got all kinds of stuff as opposed to a chair. So yeah, they like having a space. It doesn't mean we only learn at that space. Their desks are in their rooms. We don't have a dedicated classroom. That feels inorganic to us. I don't love the idea of like desks lined up in a row with like dividers between them because that just feels, I don't know. We like quiet and we like personal space and all of that. And that would not work in our household. But yeah, we like having a space to work. I mean, I have a desk, right? Like there's a different mindset for us when you sit there. Again, it doesn't mean that you always have to be there, but there are certain projects that work better. I have one of those IKEA bed trays for like, it's supposed to be for like breakfast in bed, like I'm the lady of Downton Abbey or something, but like I keep it beside my bed because there are things that I'll work on in bed and just pop that over me and sit there and get work done. And then there's other things where I've got too many things going on that I certainly want to be sitting at my desk and kind of have my system set up a little bit better. So I could totally see that.
Yeah, no, I could see that too. I don't personally have a desk. And so I understand that people are like, no, I don't, like I don't need a desk or I don't want a desk for what I do. But I definitely have like my space and the things set up the way that I want. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. Makes sense. Okay, a set schedule. I feel like we've talked about schedules a lot lately, but how do you talk about, taking things from the school system without talking about it? But we've talked about this in a bunch of previous episodes. We talked about it in the structure episode and all that kind of stuff. So our house is rhythm based, right? Most Tuesdays are the same as other Tuesdays. Most Wednesdays are the same as other Wednesdays because we typically have weekly classes or weekly events that that are happening on those things, but like Monday through Friday do not look the same. We wake up when we wake up. We do not get up and with an alarm clock on the regular. I mean, every once in a while, there's something that we need to get up for. We don't like it, but it has to happen sometimes. We wake up when we get up. We all kind of like lounging for a little while, having a nice slow breakfast, and then kind of starting our day. So I typically don't schedule anything for my kids before noon or 1 if I can avoid it, so that we can just have a really nice slow start to the day. They go to bed when they go to bed. They're teenagers now, so that's their prerogative. I will step in, like if they have to be up at the ass crack of dawn tomorrow, I will be like, FYI, let's make a good choice here today, right? Because we're
Yeah.
all going to pay tomorrow if you're really feisty because you're exhausted. None of us want that. But yeah, generally speaking, we're rhythm based, where we kind of flow and we've got some predictability without any sort of rigidity.
Yeah. No, I see that. And I have to say, I have been shocked at how many things start for kids at 8 or 9 in the morning. And more things are coming up starting at like 8 a.m. We we used to do 9 a.m. start things. And this past year I really put my foot down about it because it made us so unhappy to have to actually
Yeah.
be like ready to function before 9 a.m. that it's no more. Like 10 a.m. is the earliest except for the drop off day. And it's still a thing, but he's taken that on and he's managing that much better this year. So I get that. I will say that I started with one of those like super crazy rigid schedules. And I don't think that that's really that helpful or useful for anyone because it just adds a layer of stress that's completely unnecessary, in my opinion. I do think a schedule can be helpful for younger kids, especially if you're not doing the unschooling style of things. Like I noticed my kiddo doesn't do the best on math if it's the first thing that he does, but if he does it kind of after morning snack or after lunch, it's going to be bad, right? So finding that sweet spot of like doing something easy to start the day and then doing math and then doing snack was when he did the best with it. And so structuring our day with this kind of a schedule worked well for us in the beginning as we were like really getting our rhythm. And then again, we have talked about this a lot. So if you want to know more about it, go back and listen to one of the other episodes. In our home, one of my goals was to work on this scaffolding of empowering him to set his schedule and to get his tasks done throughout the week with this idea of like, these are the things that you need to do for the week. And you're in charge of making it work within these kind of boundaries and the other things we have going on. And so when doing that, we definitely moved away from a set schedule. But again, we talked about this so many times. I have kind of office hours that I'm available to help, and he has times that he doesn't want to work past. So we have much more of a schedule than Megan's home has for sure.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah. All right. We have more to talk about. We will definitely talk about more. But before we do that, have you checked out our Patreon yet? We are over on Patreon. If you type in Homeschool Moms Unfiltered, we'll be there. You should totally come join. We have everything from like a free level that you can see kind of some general updates and announcements. We're going to start rolling out like a monthly mini newsletter kind of thing. So even our free members get that. So you can kind of stay in the loop about what's going on. And then we have different levels of paid membership. There's like a $5 a month, like, hey, I really appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate the fact that creators put a lot of work in and they don't generally get paid for it. So here's like my support for that. And then it goes all the way up, like the next level, you get our monthly unit study in your inbox, like, yay, you don't have to do anything to find it. And it's a little bit cheaper than buying it individually. Then you've got one that comes with a couple of live meetings and some other things going on. And then we have our new level that we just pulled out or just rolled out, and it has all kinds of stuff, more live meetings, some bloopers, reels, some chats. There's like just a lot of stuff going on there. So come check it out. It's awesome. There's a bunch of different features. We're working on figuring them all out and rolling out new things. And yeah, we'll keep people informed with what we're doing with that kind of like monthly newsletter I was just talking about. And that's specifically for people who are on our Patreon. So come over and join us.
Yeah, and it's just a sweet group. Everybody's
Yeah.
just so nice, and it's really lovely. Our live gatherings are just a friendly, kind of soothing environment, which is really nice.
Yeah. It's what we had hoped our Facebook group would be before it grew out of control, right? Like people who really want to
Exactly.
be there and just want to be supportive and helpful and find community. It's nice.
Yeah.
All right. So our next one, take it or leave it, one size fits all first grade curriculum. Not specifically first grade curriculum, but we all know what that is. Like it's that the people are like, oh, I'm going to homeschool and I'm going to get 180 days of second grade. And it's this giant book and you're going to do it. Or you're going to buy a specific this curriculum. Oh, we love this literature based curriculum for third grade or level 5 of this one. I'm not a big fan. Like, I will buy grade level curriculum, especially if it's affordable. Like there are some out there that are like literature based and it's massive and you're supposed to be able to do it for everything and it's not that expensive. So I might buy it just to like pick and choose things that are interesting or use it as kind of like a recommended reading or like I want to supplement this or that. But again, we've talked about this so much in other episodes. So if you're just listening and you're like, oh, that's interesting, go find some of the other episodes where we've talked about these things. One size fits all curriculum. There are very, very, very few kiddos who are in exactly the same place in exactly every subject. Right? Like your kiddo is probably not at early grade level, grade 2 in math, science, English, social studies, PE, health. I mean, like all of these things, like they're going to be in different places. So why not? You have the flexibility, right? As homeschoolers, you have the flexibility, even if you're using curriculum to say, okay, well, so actually we're in 5th grade spelling and we're in 2nd grade writing. And actually, I don't know how it happened, but my kiddo's in 8th grade science. So we're going to get an 8th grade science, and as long as you're making progress and you're working, fantastic, right? That's all that matters.
And I'll toss out a plug for Amanda, because if you're new to homeschooling and you're like, yeah, but that's, I don't even know how to start that. I'm having a hard time picking the one size fits all. And now you want me to go subject by freaking subject? Go meet with Amanda. This is what she does. Like literally, you
I
get on
love
Zoom with
this.
Amanda. You tell her what your needs are ahead of time. She'll research. She loves this shit. She'll research all your curriculum options. She'll come talk to you about them. She'll totally nerd out. It'll be 100 times more specified than posting in a Facebook group. Like, what are you all using for spelling? You're going to get 100 options that are not targeted for you and your kid and the way you want to school and what your goals are and all that kind of stuff. So go hang with Amanda. She loves this stuff. I mean, I agree with everything that you said. We don't use curriculum, but I certainly wouldn't use a one size fits all. So yeah, I totally agree with you.
Yeah. I mean, that's it, right? I will not lie to you, right? What I'm advocating is not necessarily easy. Finding the challenge point, finding where your kiddo is in each thing isn't as simple as just being like, well, we've decided to homeschool this year. Hey, honey, what do you think? Are you in 1st, 2nd, or 3rd grade for this thing, right? It's not that easy, but it is doable. And it's really exciting to be able to see that you're meeting them where they're at in each thing that they're learning and that they're actually really excited to like learn the next thing and do the next thing. And if your kiddo isn't excited, there's a decent chance that the fit isn't right. And so, yeah, just we're happy to help you find the fit that's right.
Yeah, they're going to end up bored to tears in some stuff and struggling like salmon swimming upstream and other stuff. And it's just, and then a couple of months later, you'll be like, I don't think this homeschooling thing is for us. Every day is a struggle. Like, yeah, of course it is. So
Who
you're
would
going
have
to struggle
guessed?
now picking out the curriculum, or you're going to struggle later every single day. So take the time at the beginning to pick it out. Go talk to Amanda. She'll help you. But yeah, much better. So yeah. Okay. Keep or toss. The need to learn things because you just need to learn them.
We're going to have
You know
totally different takes on this.
No, we're going different here. Yeah, we don't do that. We learn things when we need them. We learn things that are of interest to us. We learn things that enrich us. And if there's something that we need to learn later that we haven't learned, we'll learn it at that time, because at that time it will be need-based or interest-based. Yeah, and we end up down some of the wackiest rabbit holes. I mean, Amanda and I were just talking, our last unit study was about potatoes, and it was like the most random subject, but you can't even fathom how much the potato has shaped history, right? And how
Yeah,
involved it is. And these are the
amazing.
kinds of, yeah,
It was
these are the kind
amazing.
of wacky.
I learned so much. I loved it. But yeah,
these are the wacky rabbit holes that we enjoy going down. So we do not learn things like just because you have to. We're all about questioning, like, well, why am I learning this? Does it align with my goals? Is it valuable to me? Am I going to use this? Blah, blah, blah. And then we kind of go from there. So I know things are different in your house. So take it away.
Yeah, I mean, so for us, we do learn pretty much all, I mean, we cover basically all of the standards that you would have for public schools, public education, and then some. We definitely cover all of the things they say they're going to do, and we do a lot more. I don't think that it's worth it to go all in on everything just because you haven't learned it. And so for us, there's definitely a lot of differentiation between I want you to have an overview of this, like a general idea of what this is. And then if at some point we need more of it or we need deeper knowledge on it, or you decide to go this route, we can always revisit it and learn more. And then the things that you're actually interested in, or the things that sometimes that I think are important. My kiddo might not be like, I think it is so important to understand how to write a well-structured essay. Like he's never going to say that, right? But I think it's important, and I think that the direction he's going in life, it will be important. So we spend a fair amount of time working on that. But,
Yeah. And that is one thing that we've done, right? Which was having a conversation about basically whatever you are going to do in life, you have to present yourself well in writing. And whether it's right or wrong, people will judge your overall intelligence based upon your quality of writing many times. And so, yeah, we haven't approached it in the traditional way that you have. But yeah, we definitely made sure that was a thing, because basically, no matter what you're going to do in life, kind of have to be able to at least send professional emails at a very, very minimum.
yeah.
So yeah, totally agree.
Yeah, and so it's that thing. I think most people who are homeschooling are gonna probably fall somewhere in between the 2 of us, and there'll be some people on each end. I know a lot of people when I'm in homeschool groups and there's discussion about following state standards, I'm definitely the outlier when I'm like, "Absolutely, I look at the state standards." How much we do focused on that, it's not, like, "Well, we didn't cover these state standards." But I absolutely look at them. There is not a year, a semester. In fact, just earlier this week, I was reading through the state standards on social studies specifically because I was curious if there were things that we hadn't looked at or thought about. And there were a lot of things that I was like, oh, I didn't realize that they were doing that. And I am 100% certain that public school is not covering them in the way or to the extent that I think they should when I read the state standards. But I am also 100% certain that my kiddo and I will have very interesting conversations around those state standards. And so yeah, we definitely cover them.
Yeah.
All right. So we've talked about this one before too. What about learning among peers and in groups? My kiddo actually really enjoys classes, and I think that your kiddo does too, right? It's
Yeah.
that side of like socialization. I'm sure there are some kids out there who want nothing to do with an online class or even a drop off in person class, but my kiddo definitely does like those things. So generally, I feel like that's one of those things. If your kiddo has any interest in it, like don't push back, definitely encourage it. As far as like working in groups and group projects, I think that's a little bit more complicated. I think it's probably useful for them to have a little bit of experience with it, but it's more important that you have talked through it with them and that they understand like group project dynamics are group project dynamics. I don't think there's a single person who's listening to this that is like, I love a group project, unless you're the lazy person who's like, I love it because I don't have to do any work and then I get all of the credit. Like, and you're probably not listening to this particular podcast. So, I mean, I think for me, group projects are one of those things you can tell your kid until you're blue in the face how it works, but sometimes they just have to experience it themselves before they really understand how it works. I wouldn't say they need to experience it over and over and over, but I think it's probably a good idea for them to have a couple experiences and you can talk through it and be like, well, yeah, like you notice this and you notice that, and that tends to be the way those things work. And, just again, that like preparing them for real life.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you said, my kids enjoy group classes, whether it's, when we lived in North Carolina, we were part of a really big co-op. My youngest in particular really enjoyed that. The other two were good with it. They didn't absolutely love it, but they didn't dislike it either. It was just like part of their week. They do like taking online classes, so they're good with all of that. Even in co-op, we had a class that my youngest took where he dissected a pig heart, I want to say. And the registration for the class got much bigger than anticipated. It was a hot topic. And he had a lab buddy, right? So he had a lab partner, which is very common in school, that one person is note taking and the other one's doing experiments or whatever the case might be. And he quite liked it, right? So I think just that ability to trade on and off, like, okay, I'll make this incision, you make that incision, or whatever you might work it out to be, helps with that dynamic in life as well. But yeah, I mean, those opportunities exist. Finding secular and progressive co-ops, drop-offs, etc. Not going to lie to you, not easy. But online classes are a little bit easier to find that are that run that way. Depending on where you live, you might have more access to those things. Unfortunately, we've always lived in places where that's a needle in a haystack. So, but yeah, they exist and kids totally can do it. It's going to look different and feel different than public school will be. At our co-op, we had no bullying. It was very family oriented. It was lovely. So the dynamic among peers was quite different, but they still had it. It was great. And I think we kept all the best aspects of it and ditched the ones that were undesirable. So it was a win-win.
Yeah, I will say, I think if you're listening and you're like, I don't even know where to start trying to find a secular, even just a secular class that you can take your kiddo to, I would recommend looking for or at the ones that are in some way affiliated with public school. And I know that we're just sitting here talking about like what to take and what not to take out of public school, but that might be one of those things, right? Because not always, and it's definitely changing, but generally speaking, for a program to be affiliated with public school or to get public school funds in certain states or things like that, they have to be secular. And they are likely to be more progressive than not, right? Because they have to be aligned with a certain kind of level of thing. And now again, I fully realize with the political climate and the way things are, being aligned with public school does not necessarily mean you're going to be secular or progressive. But it's a good jumping off point, right? If you're really like, I know there are like interesting science programs that will do like after school science things as part of the aftercare and stuff like that. Those might be great places to start by looking for, hey, how do I incorporate this or where can I do that? Worth keeping in mind.
All right, that brings us to our last keep or toss item of the day. Marie Kondo would be so proud of us. Extracurricular activities and clubs. So I think sometimes that's the big thing with making that leap into homeschooling is like, oh, well, they're in the chess club or they're in band or whatever the case might be. And it's a valid point. A lot of that stuff does exist in the homeschool world. It sometimes is a heavier lift, though, because instead of them just staying late on Tuesdays and Thursdays for this activity and then you picking them up a little bit later, you find the activity, you drive to the activity. Sometimes you're creating the activity and hosting the activity. If it doesn't exist, then they're done that. So they definitely exist. The library is a great place to go. If you live near a Y, which I understand does not always have secular connotation to it, but it depends on where you live, how secular your Y is going to be. So, they're known for having really budget friendly activities from sports to clubs to all kinds of stuff. So some of those things exist. When we lived in North Carolina, we had a place called the Homeschool Experience. And that was kind of like a co-op, but it was drop off and they had all kinds of classes and clubs and things like that. So they exist. It's just turning over those rocks and finding them. But I can't imagine a world where we would say, toss that from the public school world. Again, it'll look different. It'll feel different. The energy will be different. The approach will be different. The kids will probably be quite different. But the concept exists in the homeschool world. And there's no reason in my mind where we would be like, why would you want to put your kid in an extracurricular activity or club? Of course not. That's an awesome thing.
I will say it's an awesome thing if your kiddo wants it.
True story.
So in my main parenting moms group that I'm in, we just had a big discussion about this week. And we were talking about The fact one of the moms was like, "Is my kiddo the only one that is not motivated to be good at anything? She doesn't seem to actually wanna go to soccer. She doesn't wanna improve. She's been in ballet for 9 years, and she looks like she's been in it for 2. Is my kiddo the only one that doesn't care?" And there were a lot of different comments, but it's kind of that, like, it's two-part, right? One, the mom admitted that she was feeling a lot of pressure because of social media, and it seemed like everyone was posting about their kiddos winning this award and their kiddo being, getting onto this team and their kiddo this, and this idea that everything is better than what we have, right? Comparison is the thief of joy is the saying or something along those lines. And so that is real, right? Remembering, like, again, it's their highlight reel and they're welcome to that highlight reel, and parents are welcome to be excited about the things their kiddos love and succeed at. Most of us don't show the average everyday stuff, right? And so it's hard to remember that just because 10% of your friends are showing these, like, awards and, making it on the next level of this team or this traveling team or whatever it is, like 90% of your friends with kids, their kids are just plugging along happily doing whatever they want. And then a lot of the comments and discussion in our group specifically was around this idea of, like, it is kind of a boss move for a kid to say, "You know what? I don't want to practice this to become great at it. Like, I just want to go with my friends and play this thing once a week. Or I just want to enjoy learning some of this, but I don't want to put in tons of practice and tons of work and, and stress
Yeah.
this." Or for your kid to say, "I did this for a year. I thought I was going to like it. Don't like it. Don't want to do it." Like, and I think it's especially hard for parents to let go of that. And I know I definitely, when I was growing up, my parents were 100%, you will do a sport or extracurricular like thing every term. And we had to, my brothers and I, we all had to be in one thing throughout the whole year. And it could be band or choir, drama, theater, football, cheerleading, whatever it was we wanted, but we had to be in something consistently always. I don't necessarily think it was a bad thing. I think it worked for us as kids. But at the same time, it's an expectation that's not necessarily required. If your kiddo is like, "I do not want to be on a sports team or in the band. Like, I want to be at home. I'm more of a homebody and I want to be reading and discovering and listening to podcasts and thinking about things and maybe playing chess online with a friend instead of being part of a local chess club or whatever." Like, learning to accept who our kiddos are and meeting them where they are is so important. And and that's really tied up in this whole extracurricular activities and clubs thing that's happened with public school. Like, they have gotten so intense now.
Yeah.
Everywhere, yes, but especially I feel like on the coasts, they're all in and they start at like 4 years old. Like, are you paying
Yeah.
for the traveling team? And like, what? What? No.
No. Yeah. I like my weekends. Thank you very much.
Right.
Well,
Exactly.
and it was interesting because my daughter did dance for so many years and she ended up giving it up at a certain point and I cried very real tears. And but it was the best thing and it was totally what needed to happen for her. But it was still hard to let go of in that actual moment. But it was interesting because we would have these meetings at dance sometimes. And the woman who ran the studio, who was amazing, would say, the reality is 2% of these kids are going to become professional ballerinas. This is the truth. So I'm not promising you that I'm going to churn out 100% professional ballerinas. But what I will promise you is that your kids will learn that showing up on time matters, that showing up, with ballet, there's a huge thing about appearance, right? So showing up looking presentable for class, being in uniform, all of that, that supporting people in the cast matters, all of this kind of stuff. So she was like, there's life skills that are coming with this. Yeah, it was true. That was great. But I can't imagine giving up every single weekend for my entire life for forever, knowing that no matter what the activity is, soccer, hockey, basketball, whatever, like the vast majority of these kids are not going to do that thing. They all want to, or many of them want to. But yeah, that's a lot to give up. And what are you losing in search of that? So yeah, when and it's funny because my brain didn't even go to the level that you're thinking of, because for us, we've never done that. It's all just been very like, oh, chess at the library. How lovely. But yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
I'm not a fan of that. Yeah, I mean, it depends on what your kids' goals are and what their likes and dislikes are. I have homebodies, 100%. So I totally get that. Our extracurriculars are meaningful to my kids and very measured as far as how in we go.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things, right? It's fine to be either way. We definitely, and probably in large part because where we live, we know several people who are homeschooling and their kids have a goal of being Olympians, right? Of
But
doing these kinds of things. And obviously, by all means, if you're in a position to be able to support that and encourage it and everyone wants to do that and you're willing to do that, right? Like go for it. But if you've got one of those kids who's just like, yeah, I'll go to golf once a week and practice and learn and and work on those skills, but I don't care that the coach says I could be great if I practiced at home. I
right.
don't want to practice at home. I don't want to be great. I just want to know how to play golf with my grandpa. Like
That's
learn
okay
to
too.
let that go. Yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Great.
And
Yeah.
good on
Yeah.
him.
Yeah, you want to play golf with grandpa and you're going to stand up for that? Like it's hard. It's hard to be a kid who stands up to your parent and says, "I know this is what you want," or stands up to your coach and says, "I know I could be this, but that's not what I want for myself and I'm not going to do it just because you think I could achieve it." Like,
Yeah.
that's huge.
Hmm. I like it. All right. So that wraps up our main topic for the day. Before you tune out, first of all, don't go anywhere because we have an amazing mantra for you. But before you tune out, we would love to just ask wherever you are listening, if you could give us a like, give us a follow, maybe take a few minutes and write a review. It just helps us. Everything's algorithm driven. We're not super needy people, but the algorithm is the algorithm is the algorithm. And that's just like what drives all of us in life at this point. And so, in order for our podcast to reach more people and reach our intended audience, the more of that occurs, the better. And so, it's wildly helpful when you do that. It is so super duper helpful. And we would greatly appreciate it if you would take a moment and do that before zipping on to your next activity of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that like it is pretty nutty how much algorithms drive everything, but it is what it is. Okay, so we have a mantra for you. This week's mantra is: you're not replicating school at home, you're reimagining education. And that's kind of magical.
It sure is.
Yeah.
So we hope you've taken something away from today's episode. We'd love to hear your thoughts or questions in the comments. And until next time, happy homeschooling.
Yeah. Have a great one.